la famille.
So this is a little bit of a stressing situation for me because I'm not used to talking to people that I don't see any reaction from, especially because emotions and emotional intelligence is my field, and I'm just talking to a cold screen. So I must say I'm a little bit stressed, but I'm sure it's going to go after a few minutes. Once I'm going to take ownership of this space. The way we're going to do it is I'm going to spend half an hour to discuss about a very broad image of what is going on. I will a little bit touch on what Alice just spoke, and then I will narrow it down to what you can do in order to be a little bit more intelligent emotionally within your company, and also for yourself, of course, because it starts with ourselves, but also how can you also be creating a safe emotional space around you so that people are actually more efficient. And we will have 15 minutes of question and answer in the end that Salome is going to lead. So I must say, during my presentation, I will not be reading the posts, the chat, because I will be sharing my screen, so I will not have access to the chats. I'm counting on Salome to summarize and all what is going on the chat and to give it back to me for the last 15 minutes. All right, so let me start by sharing my screen and in presentation mode. Salome, if it's okay, don't do anything. If it's not okay, please intervene. So for me, we are back on my presentation, and it's a moment of on the balcony. So what is it? Why should we go on the balcony? Well, actually, it's in relationship to what Heifetz, a Harvard professor, was talking about, saying that, you know, we spend our time on the dance floor, so in action, and this is really a kind of archetype for startups. And what I realize with my customers is that most of the time, what is really missed is just a time off, to just go on the balcony and have a kind of larger view about what is going on. Not just to be drawn into action and not really knowing what you're doing at one point, but just, you know, stopping, having a break, and having a look around. Hey, what's going on? Just that is actually what a lot of my clients are missing. And the coaching session is always an opportunity for them to just calm down, slow down, and having a fresh look at what is going on around them. So this is what I want this session to be about for you. It's like a moment on the balcony. And for that, I would like to just start with what we call a grounding activity. Don't worry, it will just last 1 or 2 minutes. But it's something that you can also kind of replicate whenever you feel a little bit stressed and when you want to really calm down. It's just what we call square breathing. Nothing is no rocket science. It's just about breathing in for 4 times. I mean, you're counting to 4, holding your breath for 4, counting to 4, sorry. Breathing out, counting to 4, and holding it again for 4, and then again breathing in. So it's like a square. 4 times, 4 times, I mean, 4, counting to 4, 4, 4, 4. I will do it with you. What you want to do, if you want, is just to put your, to sit comfortably, put your feet on the ground, put your hands on your laps in a comfortable position, and maybe, you know, just close your eyes and take a deep breath in. Wow. And maybe try to see if there are some tensions in the neck, in the shoulders. You can move. Take another deep breath in. And let's start, the square breathing. So let's inhale. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold it. 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold it. 1, 2, 3, 4. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold it, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold it, 2, 3, 4. Inhale, 3, 4. Hold it, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold it, 2, 3, 4. And now I would like you just to observe how your breathing is going on. I mean, what is moving in your body when you're breathing? Is your belly growing or not? Is it just happening in your chest? Know that if you want to relax, actually, it's much better if you involve your belly, which means that actually you're involving your diaphragm, and a lot of tensions are actually there. So maybe what you can do now is we will do the same, but put your left hand on your heart and your right hand on your belly. And now we're going to be counting a little bit slower. So inhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold it, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold it, 2, 3, 4. Inhale, 4. Hold it, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold it, 2, 3, 4. Now do it in your own time and observe what's going on in your belly, in your chest. Try to do it in a kind of relaxed way, not tense because you have to hold it. Just try to make it in a flowing way. Getting in touch with this beautiful process of breathing in, breathing out, which is both an energizing and detoxifying process. Right, so we are back, normally refreshed, relaxed, and happy to go on the journey. I will not rephrase what Alice has said. We are in a VUCA world, volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous. And what used to be technical challenges where we have clear cause and effects, best practices that we just need to implement by asking the right experts, this is not possible anymore. We are totally in what we call adaptive challenges. So there is no best practice. No one can come and tell you what to do. And people's emotions are all over the place. And you realize that the way this VUCA world, this adaptive change is impacting people is really diverse according to people. You have people who are enthusiastic because this is a creative space. There are people who are afraid, scared. There are people who are into fighting modes, angry. And you have people who are depressed, just don't know what to do, totally frozen. This is due to many factors. There are internal factors, the way you were raised, the kind of beliefs you have about yourself, about the world. How safe you feel also in the current situation. I've had actually clients who are very happy at the moment. They are totally safe. They are being paid, even when they don't work full time. There are other clients who are totally stressed. They are overworking, totally. Working like they've never worked so far. And so it also has to do with our natural way to deal with ambiguity. Are we at ease with ambiguity? Are we not? And again, this is actually coming from very deep things, which is not really just the situation. It's about how are you as a human being? How are you programmed in a way? One thing that I really want to emphasize, and it's really in line with this balcony moment at the beginning, is that really people don't understand how exhausting this changing time is we are not meant to be evolving in a constant challenging environment. This is not what we are, our brain is conceived to do. And so when we are in those challenging times, basically our brain is, because it cannot rely on habits which are hardwired in our brain and which don't consume any energy and are very, very quick. We need to kind of make up every move, and sometimes also creating new neuronal pathways in our brain. And this requires a lot of energy and it creates a lot of stress. So basically something that a lot of my clients totally undervalue is just, you know, how exhausting the situation is and how much they need to take care of themselves. So the first thing is sleep well. A lot of diseases come from not sleeping enough. Just as simple as that. Find peace, find calm, create a space where you can find this. If you need to move away from the work, from the office or from your flat or a house, do it. It's really very important. And the last kind of thing that we need in those exhausting time is a way to get replenished and to get nourished. I've put some icon of care and love, but it can be different ways. It can be going for a walk in the forest. It can be partying. It can be anything. But you need to include in your day-to-day routine, at least in the weekly, something that is nourishing you, because basically the situation overall is depleting you of energy. So you need to, if you do the economics of it, if you are losing energy, you need to replenish. Yes, we are in a changing time, so we are putting into questions a lot of things. And here, of course, it's not an exhaustive list, but I've seen people putting into question their relationships, the norms, the way we do things. For instance, there is this another panel with the Allen CEO, when they have stopped having long meetings. Now they are just doing things online without any real-time interactions, or at least they have reduced that. So they have totally changed their norms, the norms they do things. It's also about how do I show up in life, in my family, at work. And for a lot of people, it has brought a lot of emotions very strongly that they couldn't avoid anymore. Before, when we are in a day-to-day routine, we can kind of ignore some of the emotions we have or that people around us have. In those challenging times, this is not possible because those emotions grow very much. And it can also enable us, this period is also enabling us to maybe change our understanding. I have a client who told me that now, since the COVID, they now understand what their wives are doing. They are working for NGOs, he never really understood. And now he understands that. Or he realizes that his wife is using the vacuum cleaner twice in the day, every day, and doesn't know why. So you're discovering things about yourself, about others, and changing also your understanding of things. And of course, I'm sure you're very familiar with this discourse, but I need to mention it. In those changing times, we have basically three big duties at hand. One is to let go of things that are not relevant anymore. And there are things that we are very happy to let go of, like those endless meetings with everyone, unproductive, that I was mentioning. And there are others that we can just put on pause. Maybe face-to-face meetings is something we have to kind of let go of for the moment. There are things we have to understand if we want to continue, because they're still relevant. Some of them, they need some small tweaking, like online deliveries or stuff like that. And what I really want to focus on today is, how do we let the new emerge? How do we create this specific space that makes people see, invent, create, and accept new realities? Of course, to do that, there is one big thing to do, one big tool is introspection. And I'm always asking to my clients at first, what is it that you stand for as a human being? What are the values you're holding on to that define you? Something also that the COVID has pushed us to do is, what is it that I tolerate, that have been tolerating maybe for a long time, that I should maybe say stop to now? And the same happens also at the organizational level. What are the things that we have allowed to exist within, amongst us, that actually we should stop? A lot of habits or ways of working are adopted at first with a bit of resentment when you enter in a new company, but after a while it becomes a habit. So there are really good things to kind of revisit. It's really a good thing to kind of revisit the way we've been doing things and put them into question. For instance, one of my clients didn't want to allow working from home, and this was a huge debate all the time. And he realizes now that actually it's working quite well. So all those things that he never wanted to look at is now coming up to him as an obvious decision. So now I would like to look at really the kind of social pressure that startup leaders have about how they have to show up. And you realize that the typical portrait, the typical, how would you say, definition of a startup leader would be, yes, I'm growth-oriented, focused, I can talk figures, I'm raising funds, I'm optimistic, hyper-dynamic, no empathy, no vulnerability, I'm strong. So this is a bit of the archetype of startup leaders. And what you realize, and what Alice was mentioning in her introduction, is that this is something that goes very strong at the moment, while we know that the reality is actually not so nice. To me, this is really like those startup leaders are actually just how do you say that? Abiding by the archetype of what we call the heroic leader. He's stronger. He bears all the responsibility. He's got a plan. He will tell you what to do. And he doesn't get hurt, of course, because it's like Superman, and he doesn't suffer. And when he suffers in silence. We don't even know he's suffering. So this is really the archetype of heroic leadership. And with this archetype come a lot of traps that I can see some startup leaders falling into, and leaders in general. We don't show any vulnerability. We don't ask for support. We don't show any doubt. We don't show any emotions. We are fully into action. And of course, we have no time because we are always into action. So I would like you to kind of see if you tend to have one of those, to fall into one of those traps. And maybe you're falling into several of them. And again, it's just normal. This is the way we expect heroic leader to behave. And there is a kind of social pressure. You believe that this is also what the investors want to hear. If you want to raise funds, you believe this is the way you need to appear. But yes, there is a social pressure, but actually the truth is much more nuanced. Because you realize that those heroic leaders in harsh times end up isolated, suffering in silence, and feeling very much guilty about it because they're not as heroic and powerful as they wish they would be. And some of them get into burnout. So being trapped into those myths of the heroic startup leader is actually very dangerous for you. And of course, it's dangerous for the company. I would like you to also kind of understand why it's actually important to get out of this mode. Because to me, this mode of being strong, bear all responsibility, not having any pain, and being always upbeat, this is to me a kind of survival mode. And when you look at Maslow's hierarchies of needs, you see that, I mean, I've simplified it. This is not exactly what Maslow said, but I've simplified it. And you realize that if you want to connect with people, if you want to improve and be efficient, if you want to learn and grow, being stuck in survival modes doesn't enable you to do that. You need to actually overcome the survival mode in order to be able to access the connection mode. You have to overcome the connection mode to be able to access the the efficiency improving mode. And once you have, you're complete with this one, you can actually access the learning mode. I mean, it's never complete, but once you are more or less complete with those needs. So you realize there is really a big drawback in staying in this survival mode that this heroic leadership locks us into, for you and again for the company. And this is why I like to be a little bit provocative and say that a responsible leader is somebody who can understand what is going on in him, what are his emotions, what are his own needs, who is able also to care for himself. And hence I was talking about replenishment a few slides before. So you need to be able to know what is good to replenish and to take care of yourself and apply it. It's not only, it's not only needed to know, but actually to apply it. And one thing that is really tough when you are a leader is to go and reach out for support. But this is needed. We are social beings, and putting all the weight of success or failure on your shoulder is actually not very realistic. We are a company, we are a group of people, and it's by sharing the load, by sharing the responsibilities that actually we can move forward. I don't think that our brain is actually designed to hold all this pressure on one brain, for one person. And only then can you be open to the people around you. Only then can you actually move up the pyramid of Maslow. This is why it's your duty as a leader to work on yourself and care for yourself and ask for support. Again, I will ask you, how much of that are you doing? And how much of this is difficult for you? Asking for support, taking care of yourself, getting to understand what is really important for you. And do you have time actually to be open to people around you? So I want also to redefine what brave means in those changing times. Brave, when we are in an easy kind of predictable world, is okay, I'm action oriented, I'm doing things quickly, I'm committed, I'm focused, and I give everything. And this was what could be defined as bravery, as courage in the normal world. And I must say, it's quite easy in a way. You're just focused and you just give everything. And what did I put on the right? I put this illustration of people on the dance floor, referring to this image of dance floor, action, and balcony, which is where we take a little bit of distance to analyze. So if we take some distance to analyze what bravery really is, we can ask ourselves, okay, bravery, it's about asking ourselves the right questions, not so much to be into action and focused and committed, but maybe to stop a little bit and ask ourselves questions which sometimes are make us a little bit uncomfortable. You know, how are we making decisions? Who is taking them? How do we handle conflicts? How do we communicate? And do we communicate, by the way? And at what level? And to whom? What kind of leadership do we have? And ask yourself if this is actually what we want. Of course, if you want to go even deeper, you can go into the subconscious realm, which is about, are we avoiding conflicts by being putting too much emphasis on harmony in our group? This happens, by the way, very often. Are we too confrontational, meaning that there are some unsolved issues or some kind of doubts or frustrations lurking or fears? Are we really collaborative? I mean, are we really collaborative? Are we really aligned? Is there any politics going on those kind of things? And The last one is, are we too dependent on leaders? This is something very important. This is one of the archetypes in a group, which is that, we always say, if you cut the head of the leader for a horde of whatever, of beasts, then they stop. It's true for a very hierarchical organization, and it's also very true when what we call a dependency, when we create a kind of dependency towards the leader, meaning that if the leader is not there, we just don't know what to do. I had actually just last week we were doing some with INSEAD, we were creating some role plays for a team, and a CEO with his leading team, and it was really funny because when the CEO was disappearing, literally the whole team was like, "Okay, what shall we do? I don't know. Let's wait." And this was to me very saddening to see that this team was just not able to create a momentum by themselves. They were totally dependent on the CEO. And the problem with that is that, of course, the team cannot do anything without the CEO and get into kind of this de-energizing state. But the most difficult thing is that all the pressure then comes onto the CEO. And we say that the group, in psychoanalytics terms, is using the CEO because his goodwill to take all the responsibilities and to overwork. So maybe you can also ask yourself, is it what is going on in my place, at work? What are the kind of subconscious habits that we are having? Are we avoiding by being too harmonious? Are we too confrontational and not really solving the real underlying issue? Are we really talking to each other and aligned? And are we dependent or not towards the leaders? Or did I create some dependency, or did they push me to be dependent on me? Food for thought. And sorry, I'm talking too much. Now, this part is the part about how can you create as a leader what we call a safe changing zone. The change zone, I've put it, is the zone which is in between the comfort zone and the terror zone. You don't want to be in terror zone because then emotions are really all over the place. You don't want to be in comfort zone because this is not where innovation happens. You want to be in this change zone and use it to your advantages. And you know that already. I don't need to tell it to you. The problem that we have with this, with creating this this creative changing zone, is that all of us have different changing zones. And all of us have different terror zones and status quo zones and comfort zones. You can see the dark green side on each of those circles is very different. What might be totally easy for me might not be for you, or the other way around. So how do we compose with all those things? You realize that some people just need some clarity to feel safe in this change zone. You need to tell them, for instance, okay, we're going to be doing that. So clarity about the plan, at least for the next week or the next month. Some clarity also about timelines. Some clarity about, for instance, I had a client who just committed and said, we're not going to lay off people until that date. And this actually helps a lot. I know it looks like cheap because you're not guaranteeing anything after this date, but at least you're creating a sense of safety that, within this time frame, we are safe. So I can stop worrying. Nothing is more stressful than the unknown. It's really one of the needs that we have as human beings, is to be kind of, knowing what's going to happen. Other needs that some people might have here is learning new competencies. Maybe, becoming better at delivery, procurements, or whatever. Others are just need a sense of safety, emotional safety. And this is harder because we are not equipped for that in the kind of training we get at school, at university. And this is something that we might feel a little bit awkward with, but which is really a field you should spend time on. And I'm going to go back to that a little bit later in the presentation. Yes, the stress, I mean, basically what I was talking about when people are reacting differently is basically they have different stress responses. One is fight. So I work harder, I put more control. Flight, meaning that I'm in denial, everything is okay, I'm a strong, I don't have any problem, I'm a strong leader. Diversion, it's about let's work on something which is totally different, but it diverts the whole group towards something else. Freeze is also another one, which is like I lose hope. It's like this team I was talking about, this leading team without the leader, which was really in a freezing mode once the leader was not there. So lose hope, get paralyzed. Again, you can ask yourself, what is your stress response? Are you working harder, controlling more? Are you more into denial, diversion? Are you paralyzed inside, but you don't show it? And what do you see around you? What are the stress responses from people around you? And if you see those things, you can ask yourself, okay, here there is big stress here. Maybe it's time to look at it. And why? Because we cannot be smart under too much stress. There is what we call the limbic brain, which is, if I'm very simplistic, it's like a 6-year-old brain in our brain, and where the emotions are, and the language and other things, and survival. And basically, this limbic brain, a 6-year-old brain, is taking over. So your higher brain doesn't function right because it's depleted of blood. And so this limbic brain is hijacking your brain. So basically, you're taking decisions with the capacity of a 6-year-old child. If this is not a reason for getting out of this stress mode, what would be? So what these are, I've listed some, it's not exhaustive, but a list of archetypes of defense mechanism that we might have. You might say, you might argue, but these are not defense mechanisms. They are actually relevant. They are if they are actually short in time. If they become chronic, then they are typically defense mechanisms. One is to be overly active, like a busy bee. One is to be caring for others. It's also hiding myself from what is really going on within me. One is being analytic. So I want more data before I move. One is to be in denial. So I have this beautiful mask. Everything is fine with me. And the last one is numbing. So I don't know, I don't care. People who say, I don't know, I don't care, it's actually a good signal to try to really understand what's going on, because they might be demobilized inside. And yes, so because all in all, if I summarize, stress is stirring big emotions. And one of the biggest reasons why big leaders have failed in the past is because they've been unable to read the strong emotions which were happening in their organizations. Nokia totally fell down when the iPhone was launched, not because they didn't have the capacity to fight back, but just because the CEO of that time just didn't want to read the emotions of frustrations that were happening within his teams. He was, basically his culture was, if you want to come to me with the bad news, don't come to me. So people actually didn't go to him to get scolded. They would only tell him good news, which was totally not what was happening. So basically the CEO believed that they had a matching technology to the iPhone while they were far away from it, but nobody would dare to tell him. This happened also with Olympus more recently. Yes, so what you need to know about stress. Stress will consume your team. It will make decisions inefficient because of this amygdala hijack I was talking about, the 6-year-old brain that is taking decisions. And there will be those invisible forces that impact the efficiency that you need to be sensitive to. Otherwise, you will end up like Nokia. In order to do that, we need to learn to contain, to create a safe space to contain emotions. And the thing is, it's not by doing, it's actually by being that you do that. This is why it's very tough. We haven't learned to be, we have learned to do. So being, a good way to kind of switch from doing to being is just to first stay calm, maybe do this grounding exercise I was telling you, and really ask yourself, what is my aim as a human being at the moment? How do I want to show up? Of course, this is one of the big things that I'm doing with my clients in coaching times. And to summarize also, we're getting closer to the end. In order to have those spaces for courageous conversations where emotions can emerge and issues can emerge, you need to have some emotional literacy, knowing how to spot your own emotions and how to describe them. This is something that nonviolent communication is very efficient at. You need to have also relational skills, being able to handle conflicts. Again, nonviolent communication is a good tool. And allowing for self-care. So emotions, relational skills, self-care. And you will be creating this courageous conversation space. This is, I would like to introduce actually a tool that you will be able to use. And this is something that has helped many of my clients. It's called the Checkin, emotional check-in. You will say, okay, it's about talking about your emotions again. This is a wishy-washy thing. No, this was introduced at first in oil platform offshore. You cannot think of a more manly environment. But when they are changing shifts, they realize that if they don't know what is your emotional state as somebody who is taking the new shift, they might be putting their lives into your hands while you're not able to actually take care because emotionally you're too disturbed. So they have come up with this routine every day. Each time a shift is changing, about sharing their emotions. It's not at all like emotional people anonymous. It's not that. It's about just giving what is relevant for now about my emotions. And a way to do that is slow down, get into understanding my emotions, and it's also being sensitive to the emotions in the room to better address what is going on. It's something that might be a little bit difficult at first, but you will realize as you do that more often, it becomes like a routine. Basically, the way it goes, you give 3 minutes of silence for everyone to connect to their sensations and emotions. Emotions can be addressed, senses, or can be connected to through sensations. Sometimes people don't know what emotions they have, but actually they can get in touch with their sensations. So ask yourself, is there any tightness anywhere? And what are the emotions that I'm having at the moment? And then, so after those 3 minutes of silence, each one is sharing what are my emotions, and if they want also what is important for me at this very moment. We are talking about this very moment, not in general. For instance, when I started I can actually do the check-in now. If I were to do the check-in now, I would say, I'm feeling a bit stressed because I'm fearing of being a bit late in my presentation. And to me, acceptance of whatever more time I will need would be something great for me. And then I would ask somebody else in the room to do the same. I'm feeling blah, blah, blah. And what would be good for me is this. Again, we're talking about the here and now, not emotions in general. You can have also lists of emotions. You can download that also on my site, marcavanzo.com. And I'm hearing some noise, which means that I'm coming from the end.
How is now? Am I too early? Do you have a lot more to say? No?
I have maybe a little bit more to say about vulnerability.
Okay.
And it depends. Do you have a lot of questions to answer, or can I give them to that?
Okay, maybe I can ask you the 2 questions we have, and then you can talk to us about vulnerability. Okay. So first of all, we have Irena, who said she loved the breathing exercise at the beginning of the session, and it really helped her relax at the end of her working day. And her question is, she's looking for tips to persuade her old-fashioned boss to allow the employees to work from home more often after the pandemic, as she has proven that she works just as hard, if not more, when she's working from home.
Yeah. So this is a hard one, and maybe actually it would be good to listen to the vulnerability bit, but it's a hard one because here we're dealing with the defense mechanism of the boss or the director. Some people just have this need to control, and it's just impossible for them to let go of this. So one way is actually to share your emotions, to share and to listen to the emotions of the other. And this is some of the things that I'm gonna cover just in the last slides. But yes, to make it very short, of course it's much more complicated. But yes, what you need to do is to start a dialogue and understand what is underneath this refusal. We always say when we say no to something, we say yes to something else. So it's good to understand what this boss is saying yes to.
Do you want to finish up on like the few things on vulnerability you wanted to touch upon? So we're
yes, I'd like to do that. And so, yeah. All right. So let me be back there. Yes, so basically in order to do this, to be open to emotions, you need to kind of show vulnerability. And the problem is that a lot of people believe vulnerability means being weak, while this is not what the definition of vulnerability. Vulnerability is when there are risks, uncertainty, and emotional exposure. Then you're in a vulnerability. But guess what? This is exactly what is happening in the change time, in the change zone. So by definition, if you want to evolve in the change zone, you need to be vulnerable. And this is why I was talking about bravery before and saying the kind of bravery that we need in a comfort zone is not the same as the one in change zone. This is vulnerability is where it's the change zone, so where creativity, innovation, belonging, trust, care, connection, love happens. But it happens also because we accept the possibility that we can fail. This is what creates this sense of belonging, trust, care, and creativity. And there is also something between courage and vulnerability, because a lot of people say, no, I will be vulnerable once, sorry, I will have courage once I'm not vulnerable. But actually, this is the opposite. You need courage when you are vulnerable, because it's risky, because you can fail. Otherwise, this is not really courage. And the thing is, so yes, there is no bravery without facing courage. And it's the other way around. So vulnerability requires bravery, courage, and courage requires vulnerability. The same goes with trust. This is something that we long for when we are connecting with somebody. We want to understand a little bit of his or her vulnerability. This is how we connect. This is how we think, hey, this is a human like me, and I love these imperfections. I can actually connect with this person. But guess what? The problem is we don't want to show this vulnerability because we are in our defense mode. So there is really here a kind of very paradoxical situation that we need vulnerability to connect, and this is the last thing we want to give when we are in an interaction. Hence the fact that we feel lonely. Like this is what I was talking about. Some leaders will feel lonely because they don't want to show this vulnerability.
Hey, Mark, I'm so sorry to cut you, but we're a little bit over. So Alice has already presented the next sessions, and the next sessions are starting in 3 seconds.
Okay.
If you want to go for the word of the end, go for it.
Just I was saying, these are practical ways: active listening, sharing openly with ownership and awareness, and create a sharing space where we can talk about what doesn't work. That's it. I'm done.
Thank you so much. It was so interesting and so inspiring to hear all of this. And I actually had so many questions, but have no time to ask you. But I'm sure I'm sure you can share your email with us, and people can write to you directly if they have questions or want to know more about what you do. You can write it directly in the chat on the right side if you want, or your website, or share whatever information you want with everyone who was here today. And I'm going to jump to welcome our next guest, but thank you so much. It was so great to listen to you.
Salome,
thank you, Mark,
for your support. Que la famille